Hi, my name is Oliver, and in this video I'll teach you how to animate a firework rocket in After Effects. If you want to support the channel, there's a download link for the project file down below, and you can go ahead and take the illustration and follow along with the tutorial, or you can just take a deeper look at how I really animated everything and the exact easing. So this animation includes everything. It includes the fuse, the fire you see on the fuse, it includes the smoke when the rocket takes off, and it includes the sort of explosions in the background, the firework itself. Now I have illustrated this rocket. You can see it consists of the rocket itself. Then we have the stick that the rocket is sitting on. We have the fire here at the bottom. If I just zoom in, we have two different colors, as you can see right here. And then I just have the fuse, which is a stroke. So the thing we will start by animating is the fuse. That's sort of the first part of the animation. So we want this fuse to be animated all the way in, and as it's at the end here at the rocket will take off. So let's zoom in and see what we got to work with here. So the simplest way to animate this fuse is just to take the fuse, open it up, go to add, and then add a trim paths. That way we can sort of control the length of the stroke. So as you can see, if we drag on the end property, it shortens. So we add a keyframe to the end, then we can go a few seconds ahead and set it to 0. Now this is something you can play around with depending on how long you want the sort of fuse to be lit. So right here you can see that's pretty quick. We can put it out a bit further, and we just ease the first keyframe by pressing F9, so it sort of slows in at the start. But I think that looks quite great, and now we want to animate the fire. So this is actually quite simple. If we just drag this up a bit so we can see what we're doing, we want to disable the yellow one and just work with the red one for now. So we want to open up the shape layer, we go to add, and then we want to add something called wiggle paths. So what this does is that it takes the path and wiggles it, and there's a lot of different properties that we're going to change. So you can see right now it's really detailed, and we don't want that. We only want these sort of points that we have made to wiggle around, and therefore we can go to the detail, set that to 0. We can increase the size a bit, so maybe 15. And then of course we want to increase the wiggles per second, because if we play this right now, it's really slow and it doesn't look sort of like a spark or fire. So this could be something like 8. And now you can see we have this sort of wiggling animation. So you can play around with this for as long as you'd like, but this is actually a fine result, and we'll go with this. Then we can take the fire, we can go to the pan behind tool, and we just want to take the anchor point and drag it down into the center. So hold down Command and Control while dragging it in the center, sort of like this. Then we press R as in rotation, Alt or Option click the rotation to add an expression. We'll just type in something like time times 80. This just means that it will rotate with 80 degrees every second. So this is just to make it more lively. Now this can look a bit crazy up close, but if we zoom out, it actually looks great. Now we want the yellow fire, and we don't want to do all of this again. So what we could do is take the red fire, press Command and Control D to duplicate it, and we can call this the fire_yellow. Then we can turn on the yellow fire and just go up here and select that color. Press OK. Now we can delete the yellow one that we have illustrated, and we can just take this scale it down, and take the rotation. And now we want to rotate it a bit, but you can see that the expression makes it impossible for us to do that. So we open up the expression, go in here, and at the start we just add something like 30 plus. So that means it's rotated 30 degrees, and we can also change the amount that this is being rotated with every second. So this could be sort of 55. Now if we zoom out a bit, you can see that we have this sort of spark fire animation. But we want this to follow the stroke or the fuse as it goes all the way up to the rocket. So the way we will do this is that we will take the red fire, and that's sort of our control layer. So we take the yellow and parent it to the red one. Then we open up the fuse, and we want to go into the group and find the path. Copy this path and click on the red one, press P to get the position. And here we can just paste that sort of path onto the position. So you can see it's being animated along the path, but right now it's in the opposite direction. So we can actually just take these keyframes, right click, go to Keyframe Assistant and time reverse them. So this way it will follow the path, and now we can press U on the fuse. And we just want to line this up. So actually we only work with these two keyframes. The three in the center are called rove across time, which means that they will change depending on how you ease the two outer keyframes. So if we add this same easing to the first one, you can see they automatically move. So now it should follow this path, as you can see. And if we zoom out, this looks a lot better. So preview it right here. You can see we have the spark of fire going up into the rocket. So now we want to animate the rocket taking off. So what we want the rocket to do is actually squash down until the point where it's about to fire up. Then we want it to go a bit down in position and sort of anticipate this movement and then shoot up really quickly. So we'll take the rocket and want it to squash from the bottom point. So select the pan behind tool, take this anchor point, hold down Command and Control, and it will snap to that bottom point. Now we can press S as in scale, add a keyframe to the start, and then we'll go to the point where it's completely lit. So that's right here, and the fuse is all the way gone. We will turn off the constraint proportions, and here we want it to squash down, which means that we have to retain the volume. So if we make it 115 in the width, we'll also have to go 15 down in the height. So you can see it's being squashed down here. And we actually want to take these keyframes, press F9 to ease them. And we really want to make this sort of slow at the start and then accelerate towards the end, because it's as the sort of fuse gets closer to the rocket that we want it to squash down. So first of all, we can take these last ones. You can see it's split into the X scale and the Y scale. We can just drag this down so it's approximately the same on each side. And we take the first keyframes here and drag them in like this. And if we play that back, you can see that it's sort of squashing down here towards the end. And now we want to animate the position. So we'll press Shift P to get the position, right click, and we'll separate the dimensions. We only want to work with the Y position. And we sort of want the rocket to go down just a bit before this fuse animation is done. Go a few frames ahead, add a Y position keyframe, then go to the point where the fuse is completely gone. And we just want to drag this down a bit. And then we can go a few frames ahead. And I want to zoom out and drag it all the way out of the composition. So let's ease this. We'll select the keyframes and press F9 to ease them. Go into the graph editor. And here we want to work with the value graph down here because we're only working with the Y position. And we'll just make some simple easing here towards the start. So ease it in the center. And then we'll put this in the center, but we want it to accelerate as it moves further up because it gains the sort of momentum or speed. So we'll take this last keyframe and just drag it up. So as you can see right here, it sort of takes off, and perhaps this is a bit too slow because Firework really moves quickly. So we just drag this in a bit until we get a result that we like. And now we can also adjust the timing. So perhaps we want this to happen just a bit before, like this. And also we want to take the fuse layer and the red and yellow fire and just cut it at the point where it's done. So right here, press Command and Control Shift D to split it and delete those second layers so it won't show after the rocket has fired. So we also want the rocket to stretch out as it's flying upwards. So we'll go to that last keyframe and we'll just reverse this. So we will say 85 on the X scale and 115 on the Y scale. So if we fit this to view, you can see that it takes off like this. And you can go ahead and tweak this as much as you like. Maybe you want it a bit before, maybe you want it a bit quicker, anything like that really. But I think this is great for now. So it's quite quick, and that's really what we want with the rocket. As the rocket takes off here, we want this stick to sort of rotate back and forth really quickly, oscillate quickly, because it sort of reacts to that movement of the firework. So we'll select it, we'll select the pan behind tool and hold down Command and Control, drag it to the bottom. Here we want to go to the point where it's about to take off. Press R as in rotation and add a keyframe. Then we go just a few frames ahead We can just add some rotation to the right. And here we'll go into the graph editor and we'll just go ahead one frame by pressing Command and Control right arrow key. Then we add a keyframe, do the same, add a keyframe, and we just add a few keyframes so we can adjust these. Then we can zoom in. And as you can see, this is rotated to the right. Then we want it to go to the left. So you can see this is at the 0 point. So it shouldn't rotate as much, so not 5 degrees, maybe a bit less down here. So you see, you want it to oscillate back and forth and decay exponentially. So this should decay, and then it should decay over here, and then it should decay over here. So if we want to really adjust it, we can go in here with the value and set it to something and go one frame ahead, and we just want it at 0. So here you can see we have this sort of really quick reaction, and we don't want as much time here at the start. So we can just drag this in a bit. And we can always go ahead and adjust this. So if we think the rotation is a bit extreme, we can select every single keyframe. And then we can take this anchor point and just drag it to the end here, hold down Command and Control to snap it. Then we hold down Command and Control, click on the top and just drag it in a bit. And we can also extend the duration if we'd like that. So as you can see, we just have this stick reacting, and it just adds a lot, and it's this sort of secondary motion. So now we can go ahead and add this smoke to the animation. So this is actually the first effect that we're going to use. So we'll go to Layer, New, Solid, and we just need this effect on a solid, so we can call this the smoke. So we need this color to be the color of the smoke. So I have this sort of gray blue color that works great on this background. So I'll just click OK. And as you can see, we get this solid that covers the entire composition. Then we go to Effects and Presets and search for CC Mr. Mercury. Drag that onto the solid. And this is sort of a particle simulation. So right now it looks a bit strange and we don't really want these highlights, but we're going to change everything so it looks like proper smoke for the rocket. So the first thing we can get rid of is the lighting or the shading. So we go into the shading settings, and this is just the diffuse and specular. The ambient is sort of just the light all around. So if this is at 100, it will just retain the same color. So if you can see, if we drag this out, it gets lighter. If we drag it down, it gets darker. But the diffuse and specular, that's what we want at 0, because that's really what's creating the reflections. So this looks a bit like liquid, and we don't really want that. So we can go ahead and change some of these settings. First of all, we can go ahead and change the birth size and the death size. So with smoke, we want it to be biggest at the start, and then it sort of has to disappear, so it has to go to 0. Therefore, we can set the birth size to around 0.3, and we can set the death size to 0. So you can see as it gets further away, it sort of disappears. Now we can select the producer and just set it to the bottom of the rocket here, so it actually goes out from the right place, and just drag the smoke underneath everything actually. And here we want to look at all of these settings. So the velocity is sort of the speed it moves outwards. Now we want it to follow the rocket, but we don't want it to shoot out that much. So we can actually set the velocity to something like 0.3. So you can see it stays sort of within the rocket, doesn't move that far. Then we can change the longevity. And this is really for how long the particle stays there. So 2 seconds is way too long. You can see it goes down too far. So we can change that to 0.8. So as you can see, it doesn't stay for so long. And then we don't want gravity to affect this, because that will just drag it down, and we just want it to follow the rocket. So all we really want to do now is animate the producer. So that's the position of this sort of particle simulator. And then we want to animate the birth rate. So that's how many particles are born each second. Now we'll go to the point just before the rocket takes off, so right around here. We can add a keyframe to the birth rate. Press U to see it down here. We just want it at 0 at first. Go to the point where it fires. We can set it to around 3. And then we can just see, go to the point where it sort of disappears up here and set it to 0 again. So that way we just tell After Effects to start creating particles here and then stop as it's all the way out here. So we drag that out a bit. Now we want to animate the producer, and we actually first of all want to look at the rocket. So take the rocket and press U. Here we can see that the rocket is flying from this point to this point, and that's sort of the interval that we want to animate the producer in. So we click on CC Mr. Mercury, so we can actually see that producer right here. We add a keyframe to it, go to the end of that animation, and we just want to drag it up with the rocket right around here. And we also want to sort of make similar easing, so we press U to see every keyframe, press F9 to ease it, and here you could see that we have the producer right here, and we can't work with the value graph because the position isn't split up into X and Y. So select the speed graph, so we know we want it to be fastest at the end, so drag that up, and just a bit of easing at the start. So as you can see, we have this smoke animation, which looks great. And we can go ahead and adjust all of these settings if we'd like. You can see maybe we want a bit more smoke here, and maybe we just want it to be closer to the rocket. We just drag this keyframe in a bit to actually make it follow. And you can just sort of see these particles appearing, these sort of circles, and then disappearing. And of course, you can change the birth rate. So if you want more particles, you can set it to a higher birth rate. Or if you want less, you can just sort of decrease it. So you can see maybe we want a bit more buildup of the smoke here at the start before the rocket takes off. So we can just drag these keyframes a bit back. So you can see it sort of builds up here, gets ready to launch, and then takes off. So now that we have animated the rocket, we want to animate the firework explosion in the background. So we want to make it seem like the rocket takes off, and then we want a smaller version coming down here from the sky in the background, and then we want the explosion. So let's first of all create the smaller rocket. Now we don't want to duplicate the rocket, we just want to make a simplified version. So we'll select the pen tool, click and just hold down Shift and click again so we get this straight line. And here we want to actually eyedrop some colors. So you can see the stroke here, we want that to be red. So we can just eyedrop that. And we can sort of increase the width. So if we zoom out, you can see we have this stroke. And you can change the stroke width depending on how big you want the rocket to be here. So we want this to be the distant_rocket. And we want this to appear just after this bigger rocket has disappeared. So when that's out of the frame, we want this to fly down. So we just drag this layer out here. And then we can go and open it, add a trim paths. And here we want to take the end, drag it all the way down to 0, and just add a keyframe for both the start and the end. And then this should just take a few frames, set them both to 100. And now you can see it disappears again, but we just have to offset the start by holding down Alt Option and click the right arrow key. And as you can see, we have this rocket in the background. Now we can just press F9 and do some simple easing. We can select the value graph, and we just want this to be slow at the start and accelerate towards the end. So as you can see, that's just a rocket flying down. It's quite simple. And then we want to add these stripes to this rocket. So we can take this rocket, press Command and Control D to duplicate it, call this the striped one. And we just want to change the stroke color. So let's go back and sort of eyedrop this white color because we want these sort of white stripes. Then we can go a bit into this and open it up. When we go into the shape, we can select the stroke, and here we want to add dashes. So you can see it creates these sort of dashes, these stripes, and we can just go down here and change the dash to get the right width. So that should be around here. And now we can take both layers, press U to see where the keyframes end, press Command and Control Shift D and delete it. So just have these portions. So now you can see the rocket flies down here, and if we zoom out, you can see that it's sort of the rocket we have here in the background. And right now it may seem a bit too slow, so we can just adjust it as we'd like and play it back again. And also the easing might not be on point, so we can go in and change this a bit. Maybe this is a bit too extreme here towards the end. We want just a little bit of easing. So something like this, and we can just drag it in one more frame. So now let's create the explosion. So we want to mark the position that this rocket sort of explodes at. And that's right around here. So you can press Command and Control R to get the rulers. Just drag out a guide here. And we can also drag out a guide from the other side. So we have the center. Go to the last point of the rocket. And here we actually just want to, first of all, go to this grid and guide option down here and select the title action save. Because the only way we can create this explosion is if we create the sort of stroke from the middle of the composition. So select the pen tool, click in the center, and just draw out a stroke. Now we don't want this width to be that big, so right around 16. And we can just take this layer and sort of trim it around here. And then we can call this the firework explosion. So open this up and we want to add a repeater. And right now you can see it's getting repeated to the side. So we just want to open it up, open up the transform. And here we can set the position to 0. And I want to select the amount of copies. So this can be 8. And what you then want to do is take the rotation. And the rotation of a circle is 360 degrees. So take that and then you want to divide it by the amount of copies. So that's 8. Press enter, and you get this sort of star. So what we want to do with this is animate this sort of stroke. So we want to add a trim paths. We can open that up, set the end to 0, and add a keyframe both for the start and end. Just go a bit ahead and set them both to 100. And we just do the same thing here. We offset the two first keyframes by around 2, ease it by pressing F9. And here we want it to be the fastest at the start and then deaccelerate because it's sort of an explosion. So you have to imagine that it really pops and then slows out as firework does. So drag this in a bit and let's take a look. So you can see it sort of pops. And if we want it to be longer, right here, you can just drag these top keyframes out a bit more. Sort of like that. And now we want to line it up. So let's take this. And you can see the anchor point here is the center. So just drag it over and it will snap to these sort of guides. Then we can drag the guides away, press Command and Control R to disable the ruler. And you can see we have this firework explosion. So this is a bit boring because it's only white. So we can take this and press Command and Control D to duplicate it. Then we can press R as in rotation and just rotate it so it's sort of in between. Then we can go down here. We just want to see the rocket and we just want to change the stroke color to this red. Then we can take the stroke color, so go over here where it's actually exploding and just make it a bit smaller. And we can also offset it a bit in time so you can see they are happening at different times. And we get this sort of offset explosion. Now we want to press U to see both of these layers keyframes, and we just want to press Command and Control Shift D just to trim them so it's easier to work with. So now if we take a look at the entire animation, so you might want to take these fireworks at the end and maybe just offset them a bit so we get a bit of time to react to what's actually going on. So you see it flies up and then down. And if we want to make it even more interesting, we can take the firework here, select both of them and just right click and pre-compose. We can call this the firework pre-comp. And we just want to time this as well. So just go in and see where this ends. So right around here, press Command, Control Shift D, delete. And then we just want to take this layer, press Command and Control D to duplicate it. And we want to take the pan behind tool and just put it in the center. So that way we can sort of adjust the scale and we can adjust the position. And we can also press R and rotate it if we'd like. And we can duplicate it again, put a copy down here, maybe make it a bit bigger, add some other rotation. And then we can just offset these in time so they don't happen all at the same time. So that's really how you create the firework animation, and we have a lot of different tips included in this. We have the fire or the spark, the sort of fuse that goes all the way up to the rocket, we have a bit of squash and stretch. It squashes down and stretches up, flies up. Then we have the sort of stick that reacts. It's that secondary motion. We also have this smoke following the rocket. And then last but not least, we have this distant firework rocket that goes down. And we have the beautiful firework explosions in the background. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, post a comment down below, and tell me if you enjoyed this video or what I should be animating next. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to get notified when I upload future videos. You can also go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Oliver Randorf, and you can share your results from this tutorial with me and I'll be sure to post them to my stories. That's all for now, till next time.